Today I want to talk to you about one of my favorite books when I grew up, and it's called Five Pennies to Spend. Five Pennies to Spend was a book that my grandpa used to read to my dad, and when I was young, my grandpa used to read it to me, and it became one of my favorite books. In fact, it's one of my favorite books to read to my kids now, and if you ask them, they probably will say, yeah, Dad's favorite book to read to us is Five Pennies to Spend. The story is about little John, who is sent by his mom to the store to pick up a loaf of bread. She also gives him 5 pennies to spend for himself. So he leaves, and on the way, he meets 5 animals who are in need. And John says to each of them, I have 5 pennies to spend on candy, all for myself. Isn't that dandy? Each of the animals responds that if they had a penny to spend on themselves, they would buy something that they need. The dog wants a bone, the cat wants a fish, the squirrel wants some nuts, the bird wants some cotton for his nest, and the pig wants some corn. Finally, when John arrives at Mr. McCoy's general store, he is blown away by all the options of things that are in the store, and he doesn't know what to do. He, of course, buys the loaf of bread for his mom, and Mr. McCoy puts it in a bag. And then John says, I have 5 pennies to spend on myself. And he looks at all the candy options, and he's seeing the butterscotch and the chocolates and the gumdrops and the taffy. And he then sees what he really wants. And that's a big red lollipop with white peppermint face. And it costs 5 pennies. And John is in a dilemma, and he doesn't know what to do. Should I buy the red lollipop for myself, or should I buy the things that my friends need? And he sits there and ponders, and he says to Mr. McCoy, I'd like a penny's worth of a dog bone, a penny's worth of fish, a penny's worth of nuts, cotton, corn, and he wants to deliver them to his friends. Mr. McCoy says, okay, and he puts them into a bag. And John leaves the store super excited to give to his friends what they need. And he drops off the fish for the cat and the corn for the pig and so on and so forth. And he's got this joy on his face. And he gets home, and before he gets home, he says to himself, I had 5 pennies to spend on candy, but I spent them on my friends. Now, wasn't that dandy? He drops off the bag with the loaf of bread to his mom. But there was something else in the bottom of the bag. What do you suppose it was? And this is my kid's favorite part, because on the last page, you're not sure what it's going to be. And all of a sudden, it was a great big red lollipop with a white peppermint face. And on the stick was a note. It said, for a good boy from Mr. McCoy. And that's how the book ends. And I love how it ends because it's great. There's so many lessons, and I want to share with you a few of them that I've thought about as I've grown up and had time to reflect on this book. Number one, times have changed. We definitely wouldn't recommend sending our kids to the store by themselves. That just wouldn't be smart. So times have changed from the time this book was written in the 1950s. Number two, inflation is real. There is a loss of purchasing power. 5 pennies would not buy you a stick of gum today. And in fact, this book might be called $5 to spend if it was written today. So inflation happens over time, and it eats away our spending power. Number three, money gives us choices. Often in life, we are given choices in what to do with our money. Do we spend it on ourselves, or do we spend it on others? Number four, spending is either non-discretionary or discretionary. Sometimes we're given money that we have to use for certain purposes. Like, for example, John's purchase of the bread for his mom. Other times in life, we have to spend it on our mortgage. We have to spend it on a car payment. But then we have money that's discretionary, where we have choices on what we want to use it for. Number five, there is joy in giving. We see this on John's face as he gives the gifts to his friends in need. There's a joy that surpasses the temporary joy we may feel if we spend it on ourselves. And finally, the lesson that I take away from this book is that others are watching what we do with our money. Mr. McCoy was inspired by John's unselfishness, and then in turn, he becomes unselfish and gives him the big red lollipop that John really wanted. These lessons are a few that I took away from this story. I love the book. I bought it on eBay to read to my kids. But in intelligent investing, we believe in bringing families together through financial communication. As this book has been passed on from generation to generation, we hope this inspires you to continue the journey of financial communication with your family. I appreciate your time, and thanks again for watching.